Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the Islamic SHAHADA channel. London, the city of kings and queens, of parliament and secular traditions, of Westminster Abbey and the Church of England. For centuries, Britain has been seen as the heart of Western modernity, a land defined by monarchy, science, and a deep cultural connection to Christianity. Yet today, something unexpected and inspiring is happening. Alongside Big Ben and London Bridge, the East London Mosque stands tall, filled with thousands of worshippers every Friday. The question arises, how did a nation so strongly identified with Christianity and secular values become the European country with the largest number of new Muslims every year? The numbers are remarkable. Islam is now the fastest growing religion in Britain, with more than 4 million Muslims across the United Kingdom. That's nearly 7% of the population. But beyond immigration, the real story lies in the thousands of Britons who are embracing Islam by choice, seeking spiritual meaning, purpose, and a sense of community. Every year, between 5,000 and 6,000 men and women, mostly young and educated, make this conscious decision, making Britain the European country with the highest number of converts. This challenges old assumptions. While church attendance has been declining, Islam is thriving, not through pressure, but through genuine spiritual search. In cities like Birmingham, Leicester, Manchester, and London, empty churches, once central to community life, are being revitalized as mosques filled with energy and devotion. In some towns, mosques now outnumber active churches, a quiet but profound reflection of Britain's evolving spiritual landscape. It is a modern paradox. A country once at the center of an empire spanning the Muslim world is now a place where Islam is flourishing on its own soil. This growth is not merely demographic, it is deeply personal. For many converts, Islam provides clarity, structure, and a sense of inner peace that they had not found elsewhere. For women, embracing Islam often brings empowerment, identity, and dignity. The hijab, for example, is experienced as a liberating choice rather than a restriction. As Britain moves deeper into the 21st century, Islam is no longer a peripheral faith. It is a vital part of the nation's story. The question is not whether Islam has a future in Britain, but how this remarkable spiritual awakening will shape the culture, politics, and identity of the country itself. For some, it is a demographic shift. For others, it is a sign of a deeper transformation, a spiritual renaissance quietly redefining the United Kingdom. Long before the towering mosques and bustling Muslim neighborhoods of modern Britain, Islam had already begun weaving a quiet presence into the fabric of English life. Its earliest footprints trace back to the 16th and 17th centuries when Ottoman sailors, Indian traders, and Muslim diplomats arrived in England. Ports such as London, Bristol, and Liverpool became the entry points for these travelers, who were often merchants, mariners, or representatives of distant Muslim courts. They brought with them spices, textiles, and precious metals, but also their faith, quietly, respectfully, and with a deep commitment to practice in a land that was overwhelmingly Christian. At this time, there were no formal mosques in England. Muslim communities were small, scattered, and largely isolated. Worship took place in modest and unconventional spaces, in private homes, in hidden basements, in empty warehouses or rented rooms. Early Muslim settlers would gather discreetly to perform the 5 daily prayers, recite the Qur'an, and teach their children about their faith. These gatherings required courage and dedication, for at that time, Islam was little understood, often met with curiosity, suspicion, or even prejudice. Yet the resilience of these early believers laid the foundation for centuries of growth, and their devotion became a quiet yet enduring legacy. The first permanent purpose-built mosque in England would not appear until the late 19th century. In 1889, Shah Jahan Mosque in Woking, Surrey opened its doors, funded by donations from Muslim patrons, including prominent figures from India. Designed in Indo-Islamic architectural style, it quickly became not only a place of worship, but also a center for Islamic education, cultural exchange, and community life. For the first time in English history, Muslims had a physical space where their faith could be openly practiced, studied, and shared with the wider public. Shah Jahan Mosque also hosted travelers and students from across the British Empire, serving as a hub for intellectual and spiritual activity, and cementing Woking as a focal point for Islam in the UK. But the story of Islam in early England extends beyond buildings. It is a story of adaptation, perseverance, and cultural exchange. Early Muslim settlers had to navigate a society structured around the Church of England, where religious life, law, and public norms were dominated by Christian traditions. They maintained their faith while engaging in commerce, diplomacy, and scholarship, often acting as bridges between Britain and the wider Muslim world. Some historians note that these early interactions helped foster a slow but significant understanding of Islam among English elites, laying the groundwork for more formal communities in the centuries to follow. A lesser-known fact is that even before Shah Jahan Mosque, informal prayer spaces existed across England in places like London and Brighton, where Indian seamen and sailors from the Ottoman Empire would quietly gather. These early Muslims were pioneers, individuals whose faith survived without institutional support, who preserved their practices in private, and who nurtured a growing awareness of Islam in a foreign land. Their courage and devotion created a ripple effect, inspiring subsequent generations and enabling Islam to eventually take root more visibly in England. In essence, the early history of Islam in England is a testament to faith sustained through perseverance, cultural resilience, and quiet devotion. From sailors and traders to the builders of England's first mosque, these early Muslims demonstrated that spiritual commitment does not require numbers or power. It requires patience, dedication, and the courage to maintain one's beliefs in unfamiliar surroundings. Their legacy is not only architectural or demographic, it is profoundly human, representing the universal search for meaning, belonging, and connection with God. By the late 19th century, thanks to these pioneers, Islam had transformed from a hidden, scattered faith into an established presence in England, setting the stage for the vibrant Muslim communities that would grow throughout the 20th and 21st centuries. The political landscape of Britain has evolved alongside the growth of its Muslim population, reflecting both increased representation and engagement. One of the most visible examples is Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London since 2016, whose election marked a historic milestone for Muslim political participation in the UK. Beyond London, British Muslims hold seats in local councils, the House of Commons, and other public offices, influencing policy-making and representing diverse communities across the country. The rise in Muslim political representation has coincided with a broader engagement in civic life. Muslim organizations, advocacy groups, and think tanks have developed to provide expertise, lobbying, and guidance on issues ranging from immigration, education, and social welfare to foreign policy. A lesser-known fact is that the Muslim lobby in Britain is considered one of the most influential in Europe, effectively shaping legislation, public debate, and community funding decisions. Alongside this political growth, there have been debates and controversies surrounding the application of Islamic principles in civil law. Some Muslim communities use Sharia councils to resolve family and personal matters such as marriage, divorce, and inheritance. While these councils operate voluntarily and are meant to complement British civil law, their existence has sparked public discussion on integration, legal pluralism, and minority rights. Scholars note that Sharia councils primarily serve as advisory and arbitration bodies, with decisions recognized only when they align with British law. The increasing visibility of Muslims in politics has also helped address social issues within communities. Politicians and activists advocate for anti-discrimination policies, interfaith initiatives, and programs to reduce Islamophobia. Through these efforts, Muslim leaders aim to ensure that Muslims can fully participate in society while preserving religious and cultural identity. This combination of elected representation, organized advocacy, and community engagement demonstrates that British Muslims are not passive observers, but active participants in shaping the political, social, and legal frameworks of the nation. From high-profile offices like the Mayor of London to grassroots campaigns influencing local governance, the Muslim community is establishing itself as a significant and enduring force in British public life. Muslim communities in Britain are increasingly visible in the country's media, arts, and cultural landscape, shaping narratives and challenging stereotypes. British television and film have begun to portray Muslim characters and stories with greater authenticity, exploring themes of faith, identity, and generational dynamics. Series such as drama programs on the BBC and independent films depict the daily lives, struggles, and contributions of Muslims, providing audiences with perspectives that go beyond common media caricatures. In music, British Muslim artists across genres, from hip-hop and R&B to traditional and fusion styles, integrate cultural and religious motifs into their work. These artists not only create entertainment, but also foster dialogue about Muslim identity, social issues, and cultural heritage. Similarly, stand-up comedians from Muslim backgrounds have gained popularity, using humor to dismantle misconceptions about Islam and to reflect on experiences of multicultural life in Britain. Their performances engage diverse audiences, blending satire with social commentary and reinforcing the idea that Muslim identity is dynamic, complex, and relatable. A lesser-known fact is the emergence of annual festivals celebrating Muslim arts and culture, particularly in major cities like London and Manchester. Events such as these attract tens of thousands of attendees and include performances, exhibitions, lectures, and workshops. They highlight everything from traditional Islamic calligraphy and visual arts to contemporary music, film screenings, and panel discussions on social issues. One of the most striking features of Britain's wave of conversions to Islam is the high proportion of women. In fact, women account for more than 60% of new converts, a phenomenon that has intrigued sociologists, journalists, and religious scholars alike. But why are so many British women turning to Islam in recent decades, often at a time when secularism and feminist movements dominate public discourse? The answer lies in both spiritual and social dimensions. For many, Islam offers a framework of clarity and purpose in a world filled with conflicting cultural messages about gender, identity, and morality. Contrary to popular misconceptions in Western media, the hijab is not experienced as a symbol of oppression. Instead, for countless women, it represents a new form of freedom, an opportunity to reclaim autonomy over their own bodies and how they are perceived by society. The hijab becomes a personal choice, a daily reminder of dignity, faith, and empowerment. A lesser-known fact is that many of these women were initially activists, academics, or involved in feminist movements. They entered Islam not because of external pressure, but through deliberate study, reflection, and intellectual inquiry. For them, conversion offered answers to questions that secular feminism or modern culture often could not fully address. Questions about equality, spirituality, and the meaningful roles of women in society. In addition, Islam provides a strong sense of community and belonging. Muslim women in Britain often find networks of support that combine social solidarity with spiritual guidance. These communities offer mentorship, education, and shared experiences, allowing women to navigate both their personal lives and public spaces with confidence. Importantly, the stories of these women challenge stereotypes on multiple levels. They demonstrate that Islam can resonate with highly educated, socially active, and independent women. They show that choosing Islam can be an act of empowerment, thoughtful reflection, and spiritual awakening rather than conformity or submission. Through these journeys, it becomes clear that the growth of Islam among women in Britain is not only a demographic trend, but also a reflection of deeper cultural and spiritual shifts. It reveals a society where women are seeking meaning beyond materialism and secular frameworks, and finding in Islam a faith that speaks to both the mind and the heart. Ultimately, the narrative of British women embracing Islam is not about restriction or limitation. It is about choice, clarity, and freedom. The freedom to define one's identity, values, and relationship with God in a way that feels authentic, empowering, and transformative. One of the most visible and striking signs of Islam's growth in Britain is the transformation of religious spaces. Across the country, churches that were once central to community life have gradually fallen silent as attendance dwindled. Many of these vacant buildings have found a new purpose, being converted into mosques to serve the spiritual needs of the growing Muslim population. Examples are found in cities such as Bristol and Cardiff, where historic churches have been repurposed into thriving mosques like the Bristol Jamia Mosque and Shah Jalal Mosque in Cardiff. These buildings, once echoing with hymns and sermons, now host the call to prayer, daily prayers, and Friday congregations filled with thousands of worshipers. A little-known fact is that in some towns and cities, the number of active mosques now exceeds the number of functioning churches. This shift is not simply architectural, it is a reflection of changing demographics and spiritual needs within British society. While some media outlets have framed this transformation as a sign of Islamization, the reality is far more nuanced. The conversion of churches into mosques is an adaptive response to a social reality. Churches are often underutilized, while mosques are vibrant centers of faith and community.
These mosques serve more than religious purposes. They are community hubs, offering educational programs, social services, cultural events, and charitable activities. They represent the resilience and resourcefulness of Muslim communities, turning available resources into spaces that nurture faith, social cohesion, and civic engagement. This transformation also carries symbolic meaning. It demonstrates that Islam in Britain is not an imposed phenomenon, but a faith that grows through necessity, devotion, and integration into existing social structures. Rather than displacing tradition, the adaptation of these buildings reflects how communities creatively respond to changes in population, belief, and social life. In essence, the story of churches becoming mosques tells a deeper tale about Britain's evolving spiritual landscape. It is a narrative of continuity and change, of respect for history combined with innovation, and of faith communities finding ways to thrive in a modern, pluralistic society. The conversion of worship spaces, far from being a point of conflict, is a testament to the dynamic, living reality of religion in contemporary Britain.
Across the United Kingdom, Islam is no longer hidden in small pockets of society. Today, there are an estimated 2,100 to 2,600 mosques and prayer spaces scattered throughout the country. From the bustling streets of London to the industrial towns of the Midlands. These spaces serve not only as centers for worship, but also as hubs for education, social support, and community engagement. Among them, the East London Mosque stands out as a landmark of faith and community. With the capacity to host over 7,000 worshippers, it is one of the largest mosques in Europe. Every Friday, thousands of men, women, and children gather for the congregational prayer, filling the halls and spilling out into surrounding streets. The mosque is more than a building. It is a living testament to the vibrancy and dedication of Britain's Muslim population. What makes the story even more remarkable is the way these mosques operate. Many are established and maintained entirely by local communities without significant government funding or external aid. Contributions from congregants, small donations, and volunteer efforts sustain these centers of faith, demonstrating the commitment and generosity of ordinary Muslims. These mosques are a reflection of faith in action, built and run by people who prioritize community, devotion, and the passing of tradition to the next generation. The widespread presence of mosques across the UK also signals a subtle but profound shift in Britain's religious landscape. In towns where churches have been abandoned, mosques now provide a space for spiritual life, education, and social cohesion. They are quietly shaping the cultural and spiritual fabric of the nation, proving that Islam is not a marginal presence, but an integral part of contemporary British society. In essence, Britain's mosques are more than places of worship. They are symbols of resilience, community effort, and spiritual vitality. From small prayer rooms to massive centers like East London Mosque, these spaces tell the story of a faith that grows through devotion, generosity, and the tireless work of ordinary people. As Islam established deeper roots in Britain, a new generation emerged, the children of immigrants born and raised in the UK, navigating both their heritage and the society around them. Unlike their parents, who were often first-generation migrants from South Asia, Africa, or the Middle East, these children identify as British Muslims rather than simply immigrants. Their dual identity allows them to bridge cultures, embodying both faith and nationality in a uniquely modern way. This generation is highly visible in all areas of British life. They are active in universities, excelling in academics, research, and student organizations. They participate in sports, from football and cricket to martial arts, representing Britain on both local and national stages. Many are also involved in music, arts, and media, using creative platforms to explore and express their identities. In the political sphere, second-generation Muslims are increasingly present, advocating for their communities, engaging in civic debate, and shaping policies that affect social cohesion, diversity, and religious freedom. A little-known fact is that some of these young British Muslims have founded organizations dedicated to promoting the rights of Muslims while actively rejecting extremism and radical ideologies. These initiatives focus on education, interfaith dialogue, and community engagement, helping Islam in Britain evolve in a modern, progressive, and socially responsible direction. They demonstrate that the faith is not static. It is dynamic, capable of adapting to contemporary challenges while maintaining its core principles. This generation also plays a critical role in redefining public perceptions of Islam in Britain. By being visible, active, and constructive members of society, they challenge outdated stereotypes and showcase a version of Islam that is inclusive, thoughtful, and forward-looking. Their presence reminds the nation that Islam is woven into the everyday fabric of British life, from classrooms and workplaces to civic institutions and cultural spaces. In essence, second-generation British Muslims are not merely inheriting a faith, they are shaping it, modernizing it, and integrating it into the broader narrative of Britain. They embody a new identity, one that honors tradition while embracing the opportunities, responsibilities, and freedoms of life in a diverse and dynamic society. Their story is a testament to how faith, identity, and culture can coexist and thrive in the modern world. Generosity has long been a cornerstone of Islamic practice, and nowhere is this more evident than in Britain. Across the UK, Muslims consistently demonstrate exceptional commitment to charity, philanthropy, and social support, making them one of the most giving communities in the country. According to recent surveys, the average British Muslim donates £708 annually, a figure more than 4 times higher than the national average of £165. These contributions are not limited to money alone. Muslim communities also invest significant time and effort in volunteer work, with an estimated £622 million worth of voluntary labor each year, supporting schools, community centers, food banks, and various charitable initiatives. Overall, the total annual contribution of British Muslims reaches approximately £1.79 billion, a staggering testament to their dedication to helping others. A lesser-known fact is that during Ramadan, the holy month of fasting and reflection, charitable donations soar to unprecedented levels. The combined generosity of British Muslims during this period often surpasses the total annual charitable giving of many other segments of the population, reflecting a deep spiritual motivation to give, share, and support those in need. These acts of generosity are not merely financial. Mosques and community centers serve as hubs for social services, offering support for the elderly, the unemployed, and vulnerable families. Educational programs, health initiatives, and interfaith outreach are all part of the fabric of British Muslim communities. In essence, charity and service are woven into daily life, creating networks of care that extend far beyond the mosque. The remarkable giving of British Muslims also challenges common stereotypes in mainstream media. While Islam is often misrepresented in public discourse, the reality is that British Muslims are leaders in community engagement, philanthropy, and social cohesion. Their contributions strengthen both local communities and the broader fabric of British society, demonstrating how faith can inspire meaningful action and tangible positive impact. In short, the story of British Muslims is one of spiritual devotion translating into social generosity. From everyday donations to massive charitable drives during Ramadan, this community embodies the principle that faith is measured not just by belief, but by action, by the willingness to share, support, and uplift others in a society that values compassion and civic responsibility. The early 21st century brought unprecedented challenges for Muslim communities in Britain. The September 11th attacks in the United States, 9/11, and the July 7th London bombings, 7/7, significantly shaped public perceptions of Islam, both nationally and globally. Media coverage immediately associated Islam with extremism, terrorism, and violence, creating widespread fear and suspicion. Headlines often framed Muslims as potential threats, and public discourse increasingly linked the religion itself to the actions of a small minority of extremists. These events contributed to a measurable increase in Islamophobia in Britain. Hate crimes, verbal abuse, and discrimination against Muslims rose sharply in the years following 9/11 and 7/7. Muslim businesses, schools, and places of worship reported heightened security concerns, while individuals faced social isolation and prejudice in everyday life. Surveys conducted in the UK during this period indicated that a significant portion of the non-Muslim population held negative stereotypes associating Islam with terrorism and radicalism. Despite this hostile environment, a paradoxical phenomenon occurred. In the wake of heightened media attention and societal debate, many British individuals became curious about Islam. Libraries, bookstores, and online platforms reported increased readership of the Qur'an and Islamic texts. Scholars and religious organizations noted a surge in inquiries from people seeking authentic knowledge about Islamic beliefs, practices, and history. This intellectual curiosity was often motivated by a desire to separate the faith from the violent actions portrayed in the media. A lesser-known fact is that this post-9/11 curiosity led to conversions to Islam. Some individuals who initially approached the religion out of skepticism or inquiry eventually embraced it after studying the Qur'an, attending lectures, or engaging with Muslim communities. Many of these new converts were young adults, students, or professionals seeking a spiritual framework that emphasized peace, moral responsibility, and community. The rise of Islam in Britain during this period also spurred increased activity within Muslim communities themselves. Mosques and organizations expanded educational programs, interfaith dialogue initiatives, and outreach projects to clarify misconceptions. These efforts were aimed at both countering extremist narratives and fostering a deeper understanding of Islam among the wider public. Institutions worked to ensure that Islamic teachings on compassion, justice, and social responsibility were accessible to non-Muslims curious about the faith. In this context, the so-called Islamophobia era paradoxically coincided with a growth in awareness interest, and conversions. While negative stereotypes were prevalent in mainstream media, they inadvertently encouraged individuals to explore Islam independently, resulting in a more informed and engaged population. This period demonstrated that despite social and cultural pressures, Islam in Britain continued to expand through personal study, intellectual inquiry, and community engagement. Islamic education and intellectual engagement have become increasingly prominent in Britain, spanning both traditional and modern academic institutions. Prestigious universities such as Oxford, Cambridge, and SOAS London offer dedicated programs in Islamic studies, covering theology, history, philosophy, and law. These programs attract both British Muslims and international students, creating an academic environment in which Islamic texts, traditions, and contemporary issues are rigorously studied and debated. In addition to higher education, the UK has developed modern madrasas that integrate traditional Islamic teachings with the national curriculum. These schools offer instruction in mathematics, science, English, and social studies alongside Quranic studies, Arabic language, and Islamic jurisprudence. By combining religious education with secular subjects, these institutions prepare students to participate fully in British society while maintaining strong ties to their faith. A little-known fact is that the Qur'an has become one of the most extensively researched texts in British universities, studied not only by Muslim scholars, but also by historians, linguists, and religious studies academics. Research projects explore the Qur'an's linguistic structure, historical context, and its influence on culture, law, and ethics. This scholarly attention highlights the intellectual richness of Islam and its relevance beyond purely religious contexts. British Muslim students and academics are also contributing to interdisciplinary studies, engaging with subjects such as sociology, political science, economics, and media studies. They investigate issues such as minority integration, Islamic finance, interfaith relations, and the role of religion in contemporary society. These efforts foster a more nuanced understanding of Islam within British academia and promote dialogue between Muslim and non-Muslim scholars. Furthermore, community-led educational initiatives supplement formal schooling. Mosques and Islamic centers host lecture series, study circles, and Quranic research programs accessible to people of all ages. These initiatives are often volunteer-driven, emphasizing both knowledge acquisition and practical application of Islamic ethics in daily life. Overall, the educational and intellectual landscape for Muslims in Britain reflects a sophisticated and dynamic approach to learning, blending tradition with modern scholarship. It demonstrates that Islam in the UK is not only a lived faith, but also a subject of rigorous academic inquiry, shaping minds and fostering dialogue within both religious and secular contexts. The political landscape of Britain has evolved alongside the growth of its Muslim population, reflecting both increased representation and engagement. One of the most visible examples is Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London since 2016, whose election marked a historic milestone for Muslim political participation in the UK. Beyond London, British Muslims hold seats in local councils, the House of Commons, and other public offices, influencing policymaking and representing diverse communities across the country. The rise in Muslim political representation has coincided with a broader engagement in civic life. Muslim organizations, advocacy groups, and think tanks have developed to provide expertise, lobbying, and guidance on issues ranging from immigration, education, and social welfare to foreign policy. A lesser-known fact is that the Muslim lobby in Britain is considered one of the most influential in Europe, effectively shaping legislation, public debate, and community funding decisions. Alongside this political growth, there have been debates and controversies surrounding the application of Islamic principles in civil law. Some Muslim communities use Sharia councils to resolve family and personal matters such as marriage, divorce, and inheritance. While these councils operate voluntarily and are meant to complement British civil law, Their existence has sparked public discussion on integration, legal pluralism, and minority rights. Scholars note that Sharia councils primarily serve as advisory and arbitration bodies, with decisions recognized only when they align with British law. The increasing visibility of Muslims in politics has also helped address social issues within communities. Politicians and activists advocate for anti-discrimination policies, interfaith initiatives, and programs to reduce Islamophobia. Through these efforts, Muslim leaders aim to ensure that Muslims can fully participate in society while preserving religious and cultural identity. This combination of elected representation, organized advocacy, and community engagement demonstrates that British Muslims are not passive observers, but active participants in shaping the political, social, and legal frameworks of the nation. From high-profile offices like the Mayor of London to grassroots campaigns influencing local governance, the Muslim community is establishing itself as a significant and enduring force in British public life. Muslim communities in Britain are increasingly visible in the country's media, arts, and cultural landscape, shaping narratives and challenging stereotypes. British television and film have begun to portray Muslim characters and stories with greater authenticity, exploring themes of faith, identity, and generational dynamics. Series such as drama programs on the BBC and independent films depict the daily lives, struggles, and contributions of Muslims, providing audiences with perspectives that go beyond common media caricatures. In music, British Muslim artists across genres, from hip-hop and R&B to traditional and fusion styles, integrate cultural and religious motifs into their work. These artists not only create entertainment, but also foster dialogue about Muslim identity, social issues, and cultural heritage. Similarly, stand-up comedians from Muslim backgrounds have gained popularity, using humor to dismantle misconceptions about Islam and to reflect on experiences of multicultural life in Britain. Their performances engage diverse audiences, blending satire with social commentary and reinforcing the idea that Muslim identity is dynamic, complex, and relatable. A lesser-known fact is the emergence of annual festivals celebrating Muslim arts and culture, particularly in major cities like London and Manchester. Events such as these attract tens of thousands of attendees and include performances, exhibitions, lectures, and workshops. They highlight everything from traditional Islamic calligraphy and visual arts to contemporary music, film screenings, and panel discussions on social issues. These festivals not only celebrate Muslim heritage, but also provide platforms for intercultural exchange, allowing non-Muslim audiences to engage directly with the community. In addition to formal media and festivals, community-driven cultural initiatives have proliferated. Local mosques, cultural centers, and youth organizations host art workshops, poetry readings, and film clubs that encourage creative expression and the exploration of identity. These programs foster a sense of belonging and pride, particularly among second-generation British Muslims, while bridging cultural gaps with the broader society. Through media, arts, and cultural engagement, Muslims in Britain are not only preserving their traditions, but also actively contributing to the national cultural narrative. By telling their stories, creating art, and sharing their experiences, they challenge stereotypes, inspire dialogue, and demonstrate that Islam is an integral part of modern British life. Looking ahead, Islam in Britain is poised for continued growth and transformation. Demographic studies and projections suggest that by 2050, Islam could become the second largest religion in the country, potentially approaching the number of Christians. This growth is fueled not only by immigration, but also by high birth rates within Muslim families and a steady flow of conversions among native Britons. Urban centers such as London, Birmingham, Manchester, and Leicester are expected to see particularly significant increases in Muslim populations, reinforcing the faith's presence in social, economic and cultural life. Despite this projected expansion, British Muslims will face multiple challenges. Discrimination and Islamophobia remain persistent issues, affecting education, employment, and social integration. Additionally, the pressures of assimilation and secularism pose questions about how younger generations balance religious identity with contemporary British values. Debates about faith-based schools, halal dietary practices, and Sharia-compliant civil arbitration will continue to influence public perception and policy, requiring careful negotiation between religious rights and secular legal frameworks. A lesser-known but significant trend involves the repurposing of religious spaces. Many empty churches and chapels, particularly in small towns and suburban areas, are expected to continue being converted into mosques or Islamic centers. This is not simply a reflection of religious dominance, but rather an adaptive response to population shifts. While church attendance declines, Muslim communities expand and require dedicated spaces for worship, education, and social activity. These conversions also reinforce the visibility of Islam in Britain, signaling both growth and integration into the national landscape. Moreover, the future of Islam in Britain is closely tied to education, cultural engagement, and civic participation. Second-generation Muslims are increasingly well-educated, active in politics, and involved in media, arts, and social entrepreneurship. Their contributions will shape perceptions of Islam as a dynamic, modern, and constructive force within British society. Institutions such as universities, mosques, and cultural centers will continue to play pivotal roles in nurturing knowledge, dialogue, and community cohesion. In essence, the trajectory of Islam in Britain points to a faith that is growing, resilient, and increasingly influential. By 2050, Muslims are likely to form a significant portion of the population, contributing not only to religious life, but also to the broader cultural, political, and social fabric of the nation. While challenges such as discrimination and secular pressures persist, the continued establishment of mosques, educational institutions, and community initiatives ensures that Islam remains a vibrant and enduring presence in Britain's future. Today, Islam in Britain has evolved far beyond its early associations as a religion of immigrants. It is now an integral part of the country's social, cultural, and political landscape. From bustling mosques in London and Birmingham to thriving Muslim communities in smaller towns, Islam has established deep roots that influence everyday life, education, and public policy. The faith is no longer peripheral. It is actively shaping the identity of a nation that balances tradition, secularism, and modern diversity. Britain has become a unique social experiment in Europe, demonstrating how a historically Christian, secular, and Western society adapts to the presence of a rapidly growing Muslim population. Issues of integration, religious freedom, gender rights, and civic participation are tested daily, creating a dynamic interplay between Islamic values and Western modernity. The rise of second-generation Muslims, Muslim representation in politics, cultural contributions in arts and media, and philanthropy all reflect a successful negotiation between faith and modern citizenship. A lesser-known but pivotal aspect of this transformation is how Islam in Britain is influencing Europe at large. Scholars note that practices such as community-led mosques, educational programs, interfaith initiatives, and social welfare projects are serving as models for Muslim communities elsewhere in Europe. Britain's experience demonstrates that Islam can thrive without compromising civic cohesion, fostering engagement that benefits both Muslim and non-Muslim populations. Ultimately, the story of Islam in Britain is not measured merely by the number of mosques, the rate of conversions, or the size of its population. It is about the subtle yet profound reshaping of European civilization in the 21st century. Faith, identity, and culture intersect to create a landscape where Islam contributes to the moral, intellectual, and social vitality of the nation. As one contemporary scholar aptly stated, Islam in Britain is not just about the number of mosques or converts. It is about the changing face of European civilization in the 21st century. This perspective underscores that the evolution of Islam in Britain is both a national phenomenon and a global signal, a testament to the enduring adaptability, resilience, and relevance of the faith in modern societies.